Thank you so much. I am Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, and I know tomorrow the mayor is going to talk about the overall crime numbers throughout the city, but we thought it's important to really have a conversation about the numbers here in the borough of Brooklyn. Brooklyn is the largest borough out of the 5 boroughs, and really, if you look historically, the way goes Brooklyn goes the entire city when you have a conversation about public safety. For many years, East New York, Flatbush, Brownsville, and other parts of Brooklyn were leading the increase in crime, particularly in the areas of homicide. And back during the 90s, we saw a change in the police department, and we also saw a change throughout the cities, and we have never really returned to the days when homicide was the king in the county of kings. And that is personified today by reaching under 100 homicides in the borough, from a place in the mid-90s when we were experiencing roughly 800 homicides in the borough of Brooklyn, almost 2,000 homicides in the city of New York. And as I stated, if you look at that 800 numbers during the mid-90s, many of those homicides were coming from this borough. We cannot applaud the New York City Police Department for doing an amazing job. We want to applaud the district attorney's offices across the city, but in particular, this district attorney's office here in Kings County. And during those times, the DA Eric Gonzalez, who has joined me at this press conference, he started in the DA's office during the mid-90s, so he and I both know what this city looked like during those times. And when he speaks, you're going to see that it is not being heavy-handed. It is about using the right hand to go after the people who are committing crimes. But today we really want to highlight what I believe is the backbone of our ability to decrease crime. Police can only remain on the surface. It is the everyday men and women who are part of the violence interrupters, the precinct council leaders, the clergy leaders, the everyday people who go into the crevices of communities, respond after shootings, stop the retaliatory shootings, de-escalating the tension and the violence that can come from over-aggression in our communities, and really filling the gap from the lack of services that many of these communities are in need of that actually feed criminal behavior. And that is the body of people who are here, and I want to really thank them and acknowledge them. We have coordinated and collaborated with so many of these organizations who are here, and when we leave today, we're going to go in the courtyard to really show you some of the public-funded equipment and apparatus that is used to fight crime and to keep the people of this borough safe. So I want to thank a few people. Number one, Pastor Guilford Monroe, who's the Director of Faith-Based Initiatives here at Borough Hall, and the Clergy Initiative for the Office of Brooklyn. And he's also the part of the 67 Precinct Council with Bishop Eric L, a good friend who is also with the Precinct Clergy Council, the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, Reverend Terry Lee from the 71st Precinct. I don't know how many years Terry Lee has been moving around talking about stop the violence. We want to just thank him so much for what he has been doing. Right. Reverend Sisu Musam, the 69th Precinct Clergy Council. Reverend Gwen Dingle, 79th Precinct Clergy Council. Brownsville and Violence Out, an amazing organization, Violence Interrupted out in the Brownsville community. Kings Against Violence Initiative, a great organization. East Flatbush Village, Monique has been amazing. We'll hear from her in a few moments and what she has been doing. One of the hotbeds of violence was in that community, and she decided to just really step up and change the narrative of violence. Community Board 17, Civilian Observation Patrol. And we also have representatives from the Shunham of Borough Park, Crown Heights, and Williamsburg, representatives from Brooklyn Asian Civilian Observation Patrol. Those are some of the vehicles we see here. All of the various ethnic groups, representatives from a newly formed group, the Muslim Civilian Observation Patrol, representatives from Mothers Elect, a support group for moms who lost children to gun violence. So when you look and see the patrol forces from the Asian community, the Muslim community, the African American community, the Jewish community, you're seeing civilians of all different ethnicities coming together and stating we have one common denominator, not where we worship, not where we send our children to, but our belief that we must continue to create an environment where we will raise healthy children and families, and we can only do it with the participation of everyday residents. Police can't be everywhere, but the people of the borough can be everywhere. And see something, say something, also mean do something, and that's being part of ending violence in our community. So today's presser reflects the too often untold story of community-wide organization of conducting very real issues. As we put together the budget for 2000, in the years to come, 2019, 2020, we must have a 20% increase in funding that will go to the cure violence, the precinct councils, the clergy councils. All of these volunteers need the financial support to do the job that they are doing. It costs money to buy the uniforms, to put gas in vehicles, to buy the walkie-talkies and other communications device. We believe that we need to do more to assist them. They have proven that they can do it right. We spend billions of dollars in the New York City Police Department. Some of that money needs to go to this additional effort of ensuring that these organizations have the financial support, not the verbal support. We say enough thank yous. Now those thank yous must be filled with ending the IOUs that they have accumulated throughout the years because they've been doing it on their own. Let's give them the financial support that they need and deserve. 2018, with Brooklyn setting a record low in homicides, beating the historic mark set the year before. That chart says it all that the district attorney gave us. It is unbelievable. I'm sure that you and I both would never thought we would reach today, coming from a high of 800, a day where we see a consistent drop, and we're under 100 homicide. That means 700 lives are still here. 700 families were not destroyed. 700 young people are able to go to school. 700 mothers and fathers and uncles and cousins and aunts and nieces. 700 people are saved because of the initiatives like organizations like this, complementing what the police department is doing. 97 murders were recorded in Brooklyn last year, the first time since record-keeping began that fewer than 100 homicides. We believe, let's move further. We want a zero tolerance for homicides in this borough, and we can do it. The possibility is in reach if we give the support where the support is needed. We also want to mourn the loss of 29-year-old man found murdered yesterday in East New York. The wrong way to start the year. Anytime you lose someone that young. We can do more with more community partners that are funded to do the critical job that we're looking forward to. In fiscal year 2019, the city invested $34 million in evidence-based strategies to prevent gun violence throughout the city. It is our belief that a 20% increase with that will assist in expanding those financial support to some of the clergy councils as well. And that is why we're calling on that increase. We witnessed an 11.8 murder decline in Brooklyn from 2017 to 2018. This is a significant decline, and it is clear that the Coney Island 60th Precinct, when you look at some of the commands, the Coney Island 60th Precinct, where no murders were committed in the 6-0. Think about it. No murders were committed. East Flatbush 67th Precinct, which represented a 65 decrease. That is going back to with some of the things that Monique has done and some of the other cure of violence people have done. The history of murders in the city has always been East New York, Brooklyn, and the 75th Precinct, an extreme cause of violence in that area. Many of the community residents have come together, A.T. Mitchell and Man Up and other organizations. They had a 45% decrease in murders. Murders are going down just as stop and frisk has gone down. Murders have gone down just as stop and frisk has gone down. So you don't have to treat people in disgrace to ensure that they can be safe. They don't have to be at odds with each other, and some of the practices that the district attorney, that when he speaks on it, will tell you about what they're doing to ensure that. It is proof positive that effective policing equals safe policing. Here in Brooklyn Borough Hall, we've led on a number of initiatives ever since even Juve. Remember the days of Juve and the violence coming together? These are some of the same faces that sat in the room and talk about making Juve safe, and we saw what happened year after year. We do not surrender to crime, crime surrenders to us. And we're not going to modify our interaction in the various communities because a numerical minority believe that crime is a way that we must exist in this borough. That is not going to happen. We've uplifted violence interrupters, convened clergy councils, and helped start and support civilian observation patrol, and they are the public safety eyes and ears of the community. I believe in reaching out and continue to grow, and I believe in a vision zero for homicides in this borough. And I really want to thank the district attorney and his entire team and all of these men and women who are volunteering to do this. They get no salary. When we talk about contractual increases, when we talk about uniform allowance and variable supplements, when we talk about pension plans, it is void of all of these men and women who are volunteering to give back in a very real way. These are our heroes and sheroes of this city. We are safer because they decided to come forward and protect the people of this city. I want to now turn it over to our leader in the criminal justice arena here in the borough, District Attorney Eric Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And Happy New Year. I want to thank our Borough President, Eric Adams, for bringing us together today. I also want to thank the clergy and all of our civic and community leaders for joining us today, including our God Squad. We're here today to actually celebrate another historic year in crime reduction in Brooklyn. And we could not have done it without the hard work and dedication of the New York City Police Department, but also we could not have done it without the innovative and hard work of the people you see standing here today. The organizations represented here do so much of the critical work with our young people, stopping violence before it starts. Now, for too long, law enforcement has relied almost entirely on arrest, prosecutions, and incarceration to keep us safe. The results were broken families and a broken criminal justice system where there was a lack of trust between law enforcement and the communities we serve. With the help of the folks you see here today, we're doing things differently in Brooklyn. We're giving young people the tools they need to be successful in their lives, the resources they need to avoid getting involved in criminal activity, and we're giving those who've already made mistakes the opportunity to get a meaningful second chance and get their lives back on track. As district attorney, my highest priority is protecting the people of Brooklyn. but it's also ensuring community trust in our justice system by ensuring fairness and equal justice for all. Now, we do that in a number of ways, but we do it with partnerships. We do it with the partnership that we have with our New York City Police Department, but we also do that with the partnership that we have with our clergy and our civic and community organizations, because without them, we could not keep our community safe. That is what fairness looks like, because those folks share the values that many of our residents have, the values that our criminal justice system is not only about safety, but it's about what fairness looks like. Now, serious crime is down to historic lows in Brooklyn. The Borough President has already told you that we ended this year with the lowest number of homicides in my lifetime. We had 97 people who lost their lives here in Brooklyn. Still too many, but the lowest since record keeping has begun. We dropped below 100 homicides. Unimaginable for people like myself and the Borough President who have been working on public safety for years now. When we had 800 homicides, we had 500 homicides in Brooklyn. For those of you who think that the increases in public safety have been only caused by demographic changes in Brooklyn, it's not true. In fact, in our housing developments, and Brooklyn has the most housing developments in the city, homicides are down by 26%. In East Flatbush, where the clergy, and especially people standing here today, and civic leaders like Monique, have been active in intervening with young people and preventing violence from starting, and NYPD and my office have worked on focusing on drivers of violent crime, including some gang members. We are down 65% in homicides since 2017. In East New York, where I grew up, we're down 45% in homicides. The year I was applying to the DA's office, there were 126 homicides in East New York that year. That's what motivated me to want to get involved in law enforcement. This year we had 6, a remarkable decline in the number of people who have lost their lives in the 7-5 precinct. These are simply remarkable accomplishments, but we do it only because we're doing it with all of us together. The NYPD could not do this without all the people that are standing here today. In addition to the drop in homicides, crime has gone down in the borough, down almost 2% on major crimes, on our index crimes. Property crimes are down, there are less burglaries, there are less grand larcenies, the autos, robberies are tremendously down in the borough. Now, we had an uptick in shootings, but I want to put that in perspective. We had 19 more shootings in 2018 than we had in 2017. We're still over 100 less shootings than we had in 2016. We continue to move in the right directions, and we're going to work very closely with the people here to make sure we drive down those shootings to historic lows again in 2019. My office will focus on the traffickers. Those are the people who bring those guns into Brooklyn. We're going to work on the supply, and we're going to work with the groups here to prevent young men from getting involved in gun violence in the first place. We're going to provide resources so young people can avoid the lure of gang activity and gun violence. Now, we know that law enforcement works very closely with community members to promote public trust, and we can do that together. We can end gun violence in our communities. It's going to be a main focus of the Brooklyn DA's office in the next few years to drive down gun violence and to drive down homicides even further. Now, I know in order to do this, I have to earn community trust with our partners here. And my office has taken a few critical steps this year, I think, that promote public trust. One of the first things we did this year is to reimagine our bail policy in Brooklyn. Because in order to earn continued participation of our community, people have to believe that the system is fair. And for too often, especially for low-income New Yorkers and people of color, our cash bail system has been unfair. We've reduced the number of cases that we're seeking bail on misdemeanors, and it has a dramatic result immediately. This year, we've reduced the number of people that we've sent to Rikers Island from Brooklyn by 43%. That's a remarkable number when you compare that to previous years, and the fact that it proves that we can actually have public safety and fundamental fairness at the same time. And these policies have included changing our marijuana policy, because for too many years, people who lived in communities of color have been disproportionately impacted by high law enforcement presence and high enforcement. And so this year, we've changed our policies in Brooklyn, driving down our prosecution of marijuana cases by 98%. That changes what people feel about the fairness of our justice system. And I think working together like that is how we are going to improve and make sure that we all can work together to focus on what really matters, and that is the people who would hurt our families and the drivers of violent crime. So I want to thank everyone that's here. I want to also sort of echo what our borough president has said. In order to move forward, we have to make sure that our partners here in the community have the resources to continue to do the work that they do, to continue to get involved and intervene with young people, to prevent violence, to intervene earlier, to make sure that they provide opportunities for the DA's office to divert cases out of the justice system and send them back to community-based organizations. We don't need to send people to Rikers Island in order to get them services. We don't need to prosecute cases in order to get people drug treatment and mental health treatment if we provide those services in our community. And I look forward to working with our community-based organizations to provide more services, to provide more diversion. I want to thank all of you for being here. I also want to acknowledge two people from my executive team who are here. Meg Reese. Meg is responsible for a lot of our initiatives, and she will work, and she's helping further integrate my office to community-based organizations. We're going to be doing different things, including establishing community safety councils, and so we're going to hear more about that. I also like to acknowledge Joe Alexis. So you hear Joe's in the back. He's one of my executives. So these partnerships are very important, including the partnership between the District Attorney's Office and our Borough President's Office, and we look forward to doing the best that we can do to make Brooklyn safer and stronger in 2019. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good job. Thank you. Thanks so much, DA, for showing that DA's offices across the country is not only about prosecution, it's about prevention and redefining that. And again, we, as I stated, and I want to be clear, that we cannot thank the NYPD enough for their contribution to this initiative, but it's imperative to take these groups and organizations and acknowledge their presence. Far too often, we don't do it enough as they use not only private funds, but public funds. I know we allocated to some of their vehicles to make sure that we could extend our public safety. So let's hear from them. Let's hear from those real leaders. We want to call on Reverend Gwen Dingle, and then we're going to hear from the Brownsville End Violence Out. Reverend Dingle.
I work with the 79th Precinct Clergy Council in Bed-Stuy. Somebody say Bed-Stuy.
Bed-Stuy.
And we have the opportunity to help families that go through gun violence, and we spend our own monies that we raise and help. We need assistance in helping them. I can remember one family that we helped. They didn't even have a table or chairs in their homes. They didn't have food, and we helped them with that. But with more assistance that the Borough President and the DA office can help us to help families, that would be a wonderful thing, and to bring families together sometimes and honor them and help them to know that they have clergy, because clergy needs to do more for our community. In the Bible it says, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. And with us coming together, we can do great things for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Brownsville in, violence out.
Can I hear everyone say Brownsville in?
Brownsville in.
Violence out.
Violence out.
So this mantra is something that we share in our community in the 73rd Precinct of Brownsville. As an organization, CAMBA really puts youth first. And for youth to understand the importance of community and the importance of the change that they can be and the change that they want to see in their communities. We want to thank the Borough President and the District Attorney for their support. The recent preliminary numbers are coming out of 73rd Precinct, which also was one of the highest precincts for gun violence. It shows 26% decrease. Thanks to the violence interrupters and the outreach workers and our team, our Bevo team. Anthony's here and Vanessa's here. They head the charge. And we just want to, again, thank the Borough President, District Attorney, and our local elected officials for their support.
Thank you. And Pastor Terry Lee.
Everybody said Brooklyn. Brooklyn is where it's at. And I really want to take this time to commend our Borough President. Put your hand together for him and our District Attorney for their leadership. And certainly for the members of the clergy, my partners. And I want to say, when it comes to love and compassion, there is no boundary, there is no barriers. And we have been moving in this for many, many years, but we have never been identified and recognized. But thank God, a little light is shining on us. So I want to thank God for our leaders and all our partners here who see in this time and season where how important it is for us to come together. I recall while I'm speaking here, in 1997, many of us remember the Adluima incident in the 7-0 precinct, what it was then, the Amadou, the Doris man, right over here in the Flatbush area, and the amount of shooting that take place in the neighborhood, how many times we have been responding and be out there behind the scene, and not only just responding, but engaging, amen, the unity with the police and the community, and just to see the God Squad and the immigrants responding to crisis and the Asians and all the different groups, the Shimram and all the different groups coming together. I believe that 2019 is just going to be greater, it's going to be bigger, and it's going to be better. So let us all come together, be a part of the solution and not a part of the pollution. Thank you very much. And I must acknowledge Sister Grant, my team, my Mother Mary and Brother Willie. Thank you.
And one of the great pioneers on the movement to deal with these issues is Monique Waterman from Flatbush Village.
Thank you so much, and I will be remiss if I don't acknowledge the mothers. Your strength and your power keeps us going and helping, and without you, I don't know how you do it. So I just want to make sure we acknowledge you and your strength, all right, before I mention anything. So I want to thank the DA, I want to thank the Borough President, I want to thank Pastor Monroe and the clergy and all the community-based organizations. My name is Monique Waterman. I'm Executive Director and co-founder of East Flatbush Village, Inc., where we provide full wraparound services for not only the youth, but the whole family, because we are all affected. So we holistically provide services to proactively go against the measure of violence in our community. So we do that by keeping the kids and the family engaged in arts and crafts, after-school programs, and unfortunately we have reactive programs. And this situation right here looks very familiar with about 10 years ago. I don't know if the Borough President remembers, and Pastor Monroe, unfortunately a 9-year-old was riding his bike and he got shot. And on front of Restoration Temple, I don't think the pastor is here today, we had our first press conference that really highlighted the gun violence in our community. And then we came up with a shooting response. So before there was any type of funding, we were putting together plans on how we could reduce this violence and going to the family when they don't want to leave the house and they're traumatized, to follow up with them when the lights and cameras are gone, and making sure that they're okay before mental health become a mental illness, which is a factor of unlayering, delayering the violence. So this day is very emotional for me, because starting 10 years ago, when you see a vision and see it come together today in this way, where we have so much CBOs and so much families and so much clergy here, when you're out at night praying with families that just been traumatized, when they're on the corner doing their tribute and their homage the only way they know how to their lost loved one, and we go out there and we do a prayer circle that's 30 deep of young men and women, minorities, is a powerful thing that no one can come in between. So with the spiritual, you have to have that balance of spiritual and physical and emotional, and we got to talk about the mental health as we're talking about what we're doing with gun violence. And it's very, very, very instrumental, where we need an integral, where we need to have the funding, because it cannot be that one incident. It has to be follow-up programs. What are we doing after that situation? How are we preventing that family who the brother or the sibling was traumatized not to want to go towards that route because they feel they're not getting help anywhere else? We need to also have a way to quantify the work that organizations are doing, that we don't have the financial resources like some big organizations that's getting the funding. So in addition to the funding, we need to have a way to quantify it so you can see the results and the statistics that's happening. Because I'm sure with clergy, there's a lot of funerals that we are arranging, and there's a lot of shooting responses and Occupy the Corner, and there's a lot of just things that we're doing that is not quantifying in a real way where you can really see what the work is being done. So today I'm very happy, I'm very emotional. This is a day that is very momentous in our community, and I would like to see more happen with this, and I'm glad that clergy is going to get the funding. Other organizations will get that funding that's not traditionally funded, and we are part of crisis management, but we can definitely get real funding so we can make real impact in our community. So thank you so much, and I look forward to being at the table to have conversations on how this could really be effective and impactful to our community. Thank you so much for let me have this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well said. And we're going to open to any questions, but I want to acknowledge, again, Man Up is not here. A.T. Mitchell in East New York area, what A.T. has done throughout the years around this conversation. We also have the Precinct Council presidents from the 6770-837369. Anthony Newell, for years in Brownsville, the community involvement that he has done. Pastor Williams, what he has done in the Flatbush area. Again, we cannot say enough about this body of people and their success and making sure that the numbers continue to decrease. And as Monique stated, we need to give them the financial support to continue this initiative. They're moving in the right direction. We want to continue to move in that direction. We'll open it to any questions at this time, if there are any. Yes?
Can you describe a little bit more about what's going on the ground that you can attribute the homicide rate decreasing so much? In terms of, you talked about effective policing, so I'm wondering where you see it being more effective and also where you see it being ineffective, that it relies on so many people in the community stepping up.
Well, I want Monique to come back and talk about what she's doing on the ground and what she sees on the ground. But I think what is important is there are a few initiatives. I recall back in 2015 sitting around with police officials and having a conversation with them about being proactive, doing simple things on the ground, handing out applications for pre-K, or doing something revolutionary, cops saying good morning to people. And just building this trust. Cops need the public need the police officers. There was a wall for years that needed to be dismantled brick by brick. And the community policing program, where now police officers are going in, identifying themselves and introducing themselves to the residents, holding small meetings and conversation. Great initiatives and ideas come out. I cannot tell you how many times someone walked inside the precinct when I was a platoon commander because of my relationship and interaction, that they told me about a crime that was about to take place. They told me about retaliatory shootings. And so what this body of people who are here, they're able to do, they are on those corners when they do the prayer circles. The clergy leaders are there when families come in and talk about the services they need. So they have already developed these relationships. It's important for the police department now to go deeper and further to understand, as the DA stated, when you look at those numbers, the district attorney talked about the decrease in sending people to Rikers for misdemeanor arrests. That builds up street credibility. And people start to now have faith in the system, that it's not all about lock them up, it's about solving problems. And I think that Monique can better tell you what they're doing every day on the ground to deal with some of those issues.
One thing that we definitely do, when we go into a community that's known as a hot spot, where we do Occupy the Corner. So Occupy the Corner is where we do solution-driven conversations with the people that's mostly affected, whether it's perceived that they're doing the violence or not, they're human beings. So we have our conference with them on the street corners, where in the environment. And once we get into it, we try to find the leader in that group or the most influential person, and we organize block associations. So in order to really help with the issue, you have to get the whole community involved when we're doing anything that deals with violence. And from there, following up, do you need job opportunities? Is there mental health services needed? Is there immigration services? Because a lot of them will say, I don't have my papers, how can I get a job? So there's it's a multifaceted approach, and we definitely have clergy sitting at the table every time we're having these conversations, because there needs to be that balance in on what we can do, how we could pray, how we can get to the next step. And sometimes that prayer holds us until we can get to the other resources. So I would say that it's a multifaceted approach. It takes a lot of organizations coming together, and definitely organizing the block, I would say, is something that we integrated. And we have a hotspot area that's known in Brooklyn for years, and they have organized. And they're proud to say they're there's reinvention, intervention, prevention, the new RIP. So that's what we focus on when we're helping our community. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. And I think, as we've indicated, the way the police department has changed some of its crime-fighting strategies, which was an important part of the DA's office. We've moved away from mass arrest. We've moved away from sweeps, and we have indicated that we want to focus on the drivers of violent crime. And so the focus here is to make sure that we are going after the people who are most likely to cause, mayhem, and the people who are most likely to hurt family members. And I think that is a crime-fighting strategy that has paid dividends in reducing violent crime. And then when coupled with the violence interrupters, that is a good crime-fighting strategy. We focus resources away from low-level offenses, put them back where they belong in fighting violent crime, and then giving the resources to our violence interrupters to make sure that that crime doesn't happen, and when it does happen, there's an appropriate law enforcement response. Part of an appropriate law enforcement response is making sure that people are held accountable and that they're not staying out on the streets for a long period of time. After a crime is committed, that someone is, the case is investigated, and the case is then there's an arrest made, because people in the community need to understand that if they participate with the people here, that they will be protected and that we will drive down crime. And so it's a strategy that really encompasses a lot of thinking. It dealing with young people and telling them law enforcement is actually not your enemy. We're your partners, and we actually love you, and we want to make sure that we can help you live and live a good, productive life. But for those who, will continue to shoot, that means that you'll be held accountable, and you're looking at jail time.
And I just want to add to that, the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, Haley Nolasco, is here as well, and Eric Cumberbatch. They really support the program so that each of the staff, we talk about credible message, talk about violence interrupters. A violence interrupter is a credible messenger, and a credible messenger is an individual who was born and raised in a community where they previously were on the wrong side of the law. And they have come to a space where they want to be the good in the community. And so that is a really critical part to change, that young people see these individuals who used to be on the wrong side, and now that they have access to those same young people. And so each of those credible messengers, those violence interrupters, receive interruption training, violence interruption and reduction training in order to be able to go out and interact. So they have the credibility, they have the training that goes behind it to support these young people, and that really is where change comes from.
And it's just really a paradigm shift, just to answer your question. It's about having young people become explorers, having them be part of the entry program for the police department, having our police officers interact with the violent interrupters and the other organizations and group, having our DA's office who's not looking just to prosecute but to prevent crime. It's a complete paradigm shift on how do you deal with serious violence in the community. And then when you have the victim or a family member who is a victim of a crime, after the police report is done, after the case is over, who's talking to them about their needs? Who's talking to them about if there's housing issues, if there are mental health issues? Do you have help in filling out the documents you need to get WIC or EBT? Who's doing those things? And we could do it better if they're able to hire staff to assist these families. It can't be just the police crime report and everyone goes home and business as usual. We have to catch these people. Instead of building safety nets, we must start building safety ladders, allow people to climb out of their state of despair, and we'll prevent crime.
That's great.
The NYPD will hold their own event highlighting low crime rates for 2018, and obviously they're going to applaud themselves. How important was it for you to show all of these folks diversity in your borough to say, no, they're a part of the solution as well? How important is that? Because, you know, you've been pushing the police to give these folks credit, but quite often it's the NYPD made the city.
And to the mayor's credit, he has done more than previous administrations. There was a lot of hostility towards volunteer groups. People didn't see the significance of that. And throughout my conversations with the mayor, oftentimes whenever we roll this out and talk about the decrease in crime, I state, don't forget the volunteer organizations. We always wanted to stop crime, but we were unable to get to the levels that we wanted to because people didn't acknowledge the good labor of these groups. So it's imperative, as the mayor and the commissioner acknowledge how the city is safer and we're doing an excellent job, part of that narrative should come with an asterisk that's stating their volunteer groups have been operating side by side with the men and women in blue uniforms. They have been wearing red, they have been wearing brown, they have been wearing beige, they have their hairs in cornrows, they wear yarmulkes, they wear kufis. They're all part of the various groups that are making cities safe. And if we don't do that, we're doing an injustice to the people who have given their lives to make the city safe.
And to the DA very quickly, what's your message? Because there's been some pushback from the NYPD on some of your programs when it comes to marijuana. Some of the DAs with the, hop in the train, the NYPD has pushed back. What's your message to the NYPD or others who will say you're being soft on crime and you're going to allow crime to perhaps go back up?
Well, I think the last several years speaks volumes to successful law enforcement practices. Earning community trust is among the most important things that as the district attorney I can do in making sure that we continue to keep people safe. Without the participation of crime victims, without the participation of witnesses to crime, we can't keep you safe. And we need to make sure that our justice system reflects the values of our community. Our values in our community, especially in low-income communities and communities of color, are we want safety, but we want fundamental fairness. We want to be treated equally and justly by our criminal justice system. And so we're doing this in partnership with the NYPD. I think you're seeing some innovative work come from the police department in terms we are going to be doing precinct diversion, which means someone doesn't even come into the criminal justice system. They're going to be diverted right out the precinct. And so I think we've come a long way, but we will continue to charge. And as the district attorney, I've been elected to do the things that I think will help keep Brooklyn safe and fair, and that's what we're going to do here in Brooklyn. Thanks.
To the post. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I want to point out these great stats.
Got some shows. Hey.